discuss.
Hear you, hear
Ladies
you.
and gentlemen. Is it on?
Yeah.
All right.
How do we conduct this? Is there a certain procedure?
Let's start with the first question. Yeah. So the first question is
Everyone should probably go around and say their name.
No.
Yeah, I like that. And what kind of ice cream they feed.
Let's talk about the six approaches that Mr. Kahn. So I think the six approach is it text, history, tradition, precedent, purpose, values, and consequences?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So does anybody want any clarification on what those mean, first of all, before we dive into them?
Yeah, let's clarify that.
All of them?
Yeah, I think just a quick one, like a sentence per.
Alright.
Just so everyone.
So does anybody want to say text?
Text is like the text of the Constitution, what it actually says.
Okay, history.
That's pretty.
Well, let's talk about the difference between history, tradition, and precedent.
Yeah.
I mean, precedent is pretty explicit. Precedent is just how it's been decided.
And what would history be?
History would be how it was written
Or the context. I think the context of when it was.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then what about tradition?
Like, I think tradition is like the tradition of how they would rule, rather than what. Like precedent is what they rule. Tradition is like how they would make decisions and why. I think because the tradition has been.
And does that feed into consequences and values?
I think.
I think values are the reason behind tradition, right?
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Valid consequences is
What follows from.
What follows from the ruling,
I think
what follows
also,
from precedent to the future.
yeah, I think also consequences can be thinking about not just looking back, but also looking forward. It's like in I think we talked about a lot in Plessy about how we not just focusing on maybe adherence to the Constitution, but also what this is going to do moving forward. At least I did. I don't know. I think during my conversation with some people, I think I heard that other people are doing that too. Okay, so that's a pretty good background of those. And then we want to talk about how do justices make use of leadership philosophy.
Well, when approaching a ruling, it really it's like up to their philosophy and how they're going to rule. So if they're more of a RBD, they will look at the case and think like, how does the Constitution apply to the modern day America? And like they'll probably twist the Constitution a bit more, or like see more leeway for how we can interpret it. But if you're more of a Scalia, then you will original. You'll interpret the Constitution in a way that's really word for word, and there's like no dispute on what a certain thing could mean.
Well, I would say that there's a little more nuance, as in the evolutionists would look at values and see, because they were both looking at what the original intentions of the Constitution were and then trying to apply those to today. However, evolutionist has a little more wiggle room where they say we carry these values from the original and then we're going to apply these values to our meanings today. And then the originalist says this is what the original intention of it was. I want to find out what the original intention is and then use that original intention today. Kind of.
I mean, that's how Scalia and Breyer described it,
Yeah.
right? Breyer described it as being the 6 principles, and Scalia described it as being the 4 principles when you take out values and consequences. Yeah.
But like, I feel like any judge should actually genuinely consider the consequences of their actions. Like, it'd be concerning if they didn't.
The exact quote from Breyer is that evolutionists believe that our understanding of the Constitution evolves over time, and Scalia said that originalists believe that the Constitution means the same thing today as it did in 1787.
Yeah, I think also in that, I think that Scalia would say that, and he did say that there's a process for writing amendments, and so if there's a way to adjust the ruling document, then we don't need to do it on our own. And also, I think that
it's not up to these
Nine.
9 or even
Elected
like just
officials,
5 unelected officials to decide how the country should act or what the country should believe or what the laws of this country are, and thus, like, it should be like, you know, a whole country decision by way of passing an amendment.
Instead it's up to
whatever 300 men 300 years ago.
I think the one thing that's interesting is that
Okay, whatever.
When you think of it in context with what Professor Gould was saying about the counter-majoritarian debate, though, I think I understood what Scalia is saying to be there are some ways in which it is not our job to be so explicitly counter-majoritarian, and the way to solve that is to go with the majority and have the amendment.
But my question then is, cases are brought, so when laws are enacted, it's gonna usually be by a majority, it has to be by a majority of the legislature. So should justice, how much justices take into account whether they're ruling in a majoritarian or counter-majoritarian manner? Because if Scalia is saying it's not our job to kind of change all these things, then how do you respond to the point if you think that the Constitution points in this way, but it would always be counter-majoritarian, how would you kind of counter that?
Scalia responded to that. Scalia says that the majoritarian rule is like a good default and a good rule of thumb, but that the founding fathers and all their glorious wisdom built in counter-majoritarian principles into the Constitution to defend minorities. So like pretty much all of the Bill of Rights is counter-majoritarian. Yeah, go ahead.
That's kind of what footnote 4 is trying to solve. It's kind of saying like we believe that that the Supreme Court should, for the legitimacy of the court and the regulation, shouldn't be constantly overturning all of these like regulations and laws for like no real reason. So it's only when like it fits into these like very specific like really bad categories that are like baked in the Constitution, and that are the only cases where we should actually overturn the majority opinion. It's like it's setting out a guideline for when to not be majoritarian.
But the problem with footnote 4 is that like it's a footnote in one case, and I think that like.
But it has a lot of
But it's
basis
still-
beforehand and
But
after.
it's
I think
still
Scalia
like,
can say that or you wouldn't, that's like legitimate.
no, but I'm
Hold the
still
weight of the
saying.
Constitution.
Yeah, but like I think that there is like there's some legitimacy and some reasons why like footnote 4 should be like more of like put into actual something rather than just being like a side footnote.
But the fact that it's been brought up in so many cases
Yeah.
legitimizes it a lot.
It's
not just that, but also
It's an
established in
evolutionary
precedent.
law, whatever.
But also
It's precedent and tradition at this point,
is,
so it can be
but
considered
it's
two of
not,
the different buckets.
footnote 4 isn't the first one though. I asked Jonathan Roll about it after class, and he said that there is precedent before footnote 4 that they then use to create footnote 4.
From
So
the time of the
So it's not just
Constitution.
like a quick, from previous cases.
It's from the time of the Constitution.
Yeah, because they clearly
I
been
don't think
avoiding
so.
that precedent
I don't think it's
throughout
from the
that
time of the
precedent throughout
Constitution, but they
long
do
era.
use precedent from
Yeah.
previous cases. So I'm saying that footnote 4 is not just like a quick thing that randomly pops up and then everything after that is based on
My
footnote
problem
4.
with
It has genuine precedent.
My problem with footnote 4 is less like it's is it legitimate because it's a footnote and you make a good case about the precedent and stuff, and also how it has been legitimized by citing it frequently. But it's more just that like some dude decided to write his judicial philosophy into law and into precedent, and even though to be honest it matches well with my judicial philosophy and I believe in strict scrutiny, I'm not sure that anybody should be like, kind of codifying what they think and writing it into law.
But that's what this whole system is. I mean,
But
when we
it's
think
case
about,
specific, which is the difference.
but
And precedent
no, but
can
that's
be
Marshall.
generalized.
That's what Marshall is doing. Like he's dictating everything. He's like whatever what we see today. Like that's essentially like done by him and written in through one essential
But
big opinion
Marshall
for political reasons.
I'd say the difference is Marshall. Well, yes. The are you talking about like making federalism kind of the yeah.
Or even just the establishment of judicial review was entirely.
Yeah, but judicial, I don't know. It's kind of the whole system is based on that now, so it's hard to.
What about the
It's-
fact that
that's
other
what-
that's-
what about the fact that other justices signed on to the ruling? Like, it's not just his opinion then.
Okay, great, but it's the same problem if it's 9 people's opinion.
That's what I'm saying, I think it always is
Marshall,
that.
Well, that is
But
the system we live
The thing
in.
that's different is that it's case-specific precedent, which of course can be generalized, but it can also be argued and overturned. And like when it's a different case that's somewhat analogous, you can still make the case that like because of the differences, it doesn't apply here. And so it is up to who's ever on the court to apply their judicial philosophy and rule in a certain way. So precedent, yes, always establishing precedent will inform decisions in the future. The difference with strict scrutiny is that he's not saying in this case, it's because it affects minorities that we do this. He's saying that in all future cases, here's the way we're going to go about doing.
I think that's what Marshall's doing in a lot of ways.
Can you be specific?
In
Yeah.
Marbury?
I think, yeah, in Marbury, but I think also, I don't know, I guess they're always saying what the Constitution says, and I guess that's a form. I get what you're saying about how like there isn't, yes, like footnote 4 is like really like stating a judicial philosophy point blank. But yeah, I think the idea of interpreting the Constitution in Marbury, I think like is that. And also like, I don't know, I'm really hesitant to think that that this whole like court process isn't just in and of itself like a series of people. Like Scalia makes this thing like in his critique of evolutionists of, like are you like an implementer of good values or like a good lawyer? Sorry, I realize it's a little tangential perhaps, so we can.
Well,
Okay,
okay, the thing is,
Find
so,
your corner.
Wait, can I respond
Yeah,
to
yeah,
Talia's
yeah.
before you guys pile on? Okay, first of all, with regard to Marbury, yeah, he did say what I think is going to establish like the entire, we're gonna change the rule of the Supreme Court entirely, but which, yeah, like there's a big problem with that. But the thing that's different is like, here he laid the foundation, put in the bottom stone, which everything else is built on top of. So like, yeah, maybe the bottom stone shouldn't have been there, but we wouldn't be talking about any of this like if it wasn't there. Like now it's become the name of the system, and so the response to that might be, isn't strict scrutiny the same because we built a bunch of stuff on top of it? The difference is that it's not a foundation. Is that each justice, when they got on the Supreme Court, puts another brick in the building. But with strict scrutiny, he basically took like, he put in so many bricks and built it all up that like everything's going to be built on top of that instead of like taking the.
I think Alana's point also goes to the fact that it's not like that it's actually is taking from something, which I think you could say
It's
is
built on
perhaps
other stuff,
analogous
too.
is to Marbury, and I think that
I'm saying the
I just
amount
don't
of
see the
space-
difference.
I'm saying the amount of space it takes up, it's still built on top of other bricks, but it's more than just putting his own brick in the wall with like the amount of precedent or whatever. He's establishing a lot of stuff.
How is that any different than Marshall?
Can I just say,
Marshall's the foundation, which is why
But
it's
he-
well,
This is the foundation, this is the foundation.
Can I just say,
Yeah.
okay,
yeah, sorry.
the way I see it is that a lot of the time we look at the Constitution, like the Torah basically, it's like divinely written and so well done that we can take anything from it and there's deep meaning in everything. But the thing is, it wasn't actually written by God. Little did you know.
60 old
Talking about the
300
Constitution.
years ago.
I thought it was like
60 gods.
And so
Don't we say
what
nation
happened
under God?
is that it is just a document that we decided as a country, yeah, this works, like this can be something we use. And every single case we do, we're just doing that same thing of, yes, this works, we agree to do this. Because the court doesn't, I have this feeling, and I don't know if anyone shares my opinion, but the court doesn't have any like real physical power. They just have the power to say something, and then we've sort of decided, okay, we will listen.
I find it.
So when we are doing these, when you're asking about the bricks, the fact is every single brick is checked beforehand, because if they said something we genuinely as a country do not agree with, it would have been struck down, it would not have been built up again.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying strict scrutiny doesn't have precedent or anything, and it is built on top of stuff, and I think like the precedent for it is valid and everything like that. I'm just saying, writing a judicial philosophy in broad terms and laying out like this is the procedure that we're going to use from here on out is different than saying like here's how we're going to rule in this specific case, which establishes precedent, but not in. Precedent normally needs to be generalized by justices. The justices do not generalize the precedent before it goes to other cases.
And that undermines the legitimacy of the court too.
Every
But
time
the
they're
thing
writing
is
a judicial
that-
philosophy into law,
Yeah.
every time they make a ruling, they're
But I feel
essentially
like-
doing
But
that.
they're applying a general judicial philosophy to a specific case. Whereas here, they're writing the legitimacy of the court comes from, we aren't going to rule on what everything means, and we aren't going to be political and like write our philosophies into things. We're just going to rule on case-specific things, right? So here,
Sydney,
You
you're
get
allowed to
any,
say.
sorry, go on.
Well, I think that the difference is that in most cases when they're setting a precedent or anything, they're using their judicial philosophy to set a precedent, they're using it to influence the law. But with footnote 4, he's using, like, he saw this as an opportunity to turn his judicial philosophy into the law.
I'm not saying there's an issue with that.
I'm not saying there's.
I'm saying that already exists.
If you ground that in the Constitution, what's the problem with it?
Because every judicial philosophy is grounded in the Constitution, or most of them, at least, and I would hope.
Well, then that's just how we
I
have
don't
to
think any
accept our
justice is
country to
available.
be. Not everyone has to listen to
But they're
footnote
not.
4, and some people haven't listened to footnote 4. The fact of the matter is that that's just how our system works. If you want to change it, we can change it with Congress, but
Just the system as a whole is
messed up.
messed up. Like that's
Can I
like
propose?
that's what we've just like. I think like that's with a lot of us. I don't know. I won't speak for anyone else, but that is what I have taken away, that the system is messed up, and like there's no like a justice or a group of 5 justices can do whatever they like, can kind of do whatever they want, write whatever they want into law, and they can generalize and use their judicial philosophies to do anything. And the fact that in this one case they like implement their judicial philosophy is not the first, and it probably won't be the last, and that's just how the system works.
I wonder if this class is gonna be worse.
Yeah.
I was gonna make a dumb joke. So someone hasn't actually.
Skip it, Rachel.
Yeah, to be honest, like what Rita's saying, I think that's totally fine, and I don't mind that these 9 Supreme Court justices can kind of like do whatever they want, because if you think about it, when the Constitution was written, I mean, how many people actually had a say? I think it was like mostly James Madison writing it up, and then like people signed it, whatever, and it was only white men, and like it really wasn't that democratic. And so the Constitution was really only written by a few amount of people. And so why do those few people get to have more say than a few people on the Supreme Court 100 years later?
Well, the argument is that at that time when they wrote that, they were all representatives from different states, all like, if not elected democratically, like they were representatives. Whereas in the Supreme Court, technically is chosen by the president, which is like the country's representative, but they're not chosen by the people, sort of.
But
again,
but were they actually chosen by the people, or in the early founding of our country? Like,
I don't know.
I agree that it's not real, but like I'm saying that would be the argument.
Yeah.
How many people voted for our
But
president?
also, like,
Yeah.
delegates to the Constitutional Convention weren't like elected officials. I think they were either appointed by the state governments and stuff. And also that like
It's
the Supreme
a
Court
lot
like
of indirect
yeah.
democracy.
Also,
Yeah.
I
It's
feel
like
like
indirect democracy times like
Which was
that.
by design.
I feel the
Yeah.
also I feel like the Supreme Court is more is more direct than we give it credit. I don't think the Supreme Court is any less like the appointment process for the Supreme Court. I don't think is any less direct than the appointment process for the president. Like we're not when we vote at the polls, we're not voting for a candidate. We're voting for electors who we hope will go vote for the candidate we like. And so it's the same. It's effectively the same thing with Supreme Court, because you're voting. When I vote, I vote for my senator, and I'm hoping that when they're given the opportunity to appoint justice, that they appoint the ones I like.
I agree with that.
And so I agree that the Supreme Court there are possibly some undemocratic issues with it, but I think it is I don't think it's any less a democratic position than than most other.
Yeah, there are also reasons. So let's say that we did elect the people on the Supreme Court, then there would be so many partisan issues that we're
There
facing.
already are.
It's the installation, that's what Jonathan Gould is talking about.
Yes, but once you get on the court, they really don't have any obligations to their parties.
They have an obligation to the legitimacy of the court, but they still
Yes, but that's
that's the only thing that's
But the
grounding
reason
them
they're
in,
elected is
because
because
they want to
everyone
be
knows what they're going
taken
to decide.
seriously. Like there's so
Look
much.
what happened with Justice Kennedy when he got into the court. Like the court is open to people who can change their mind while they're on the court. If Justice Kennedy was in politics, that couldn't happen. he would be ostracized from his party.
Well,
Yes,
I mean,
however.
I'm not
And
exactly
Trump
sure
started
that's
this.
true.
However, the issue is
And
though that
Bernie's
the way
gonna
to get in
be-
is that what they do is they check who is going to be someone who they think, oh, this person's gonna really, really stick to our party's choice
Yeah.
and
But also, I
believe
mean,
it. And maybe they make a mistake, maybe the person
Why
changed
didn't the
their mind.
Republicans
But
let
most of the time, they're trying to pick
Merrick
someone who
Garland
will
be
always
confirmed?
vote for them.
Like,
I know, I'm just saying that once people get on the court. And another thing is, one thing that that Jonathan Gould said is that, yes, it may be true that these people are kind of just imposing their views and they're good lawyers, they can figure out how to do it through the law. But, I mean, for people who are people who are supposed to be interpreting laws, don't we want them to, in some sense, be doing what they see as a kind of value-driven, like supporting value-driven ideas in their mind? I mean, even if
which is politics, which is fine. I'm saying that it's
but they
codifying
don't.
politics.
No, but the point
Like,
is,
it's
no, but
not
the point is,
that.
the point is that it's not. They're not tied to the politics. So let's say that a justice is on the court and they think that
their individual
the
politics.
Second Amendment is being expanded too much in our country. When they're on the court, and let's say that they were appointed by a Republican president, they wouldn't need to hold true to the idea that the Second Amendment allows for everyone to have guns. They could then change their mind and say, you know what, with the state of our country now and what's going on with context, we need to change. That's where the political aspect of it changes. Just because the people are making
But
decisions.
they're still using their personal political ideas.
Yes,
and
yes,
whatever.
but the
So
point
it
is that they're not
depends-
tied.
The Supreme Court will
They can
always be
actually
political
choose what
no
they want to
matter
do.
But I think
what happens, it just depends on which, what we're talking about in terms of political aspects. Like, each justice is always gonna bring their personal, like,
Yeah.
politics
Every
into it.
interpretation is biased.
But the reason it's different from politics is because they don't need votes. They don't need to.
Except that they do, because they need to get 5 people to agree with them, and if they get 5 people to agree with them, then the decisions can be watered down anyway.
Well,
Yes, but that's just coming to a consensus.
Okay.
That's not radically changing your opinion in order to conform
Different
to.
than
This,
Being, elected is different
Yeah.
than just trying to get like 5 people, yeah.
this is where my belief comes in of, I believe there should be a supermajority of 7 to 2 required, and that if you don't meet that, you, but you do have a 5 to 4, or you have a 6 to 3, this is like unnecessary because it won't happen, but I'm gonna just say it anyway. If you have less than a 7-2, then you can make a decision, but it'll only last for like a year or 2 years, and then you re-vote on the issue. And I think that that is a good way to then establish, because, sorry, I read.
That's just one more unelected person.
No,
making
but the
that.
difference is
In my
that,
mind, I don't think it changes that much.
the difference is that if the argument is that 5 to 4, 5 people is so few, sure, 7 is also so few.
But it's
But the
less.
difference is that these
And you're
justices
letting-
go on for their whole lives.
You mean
but then
no,
you're
right?
letting like some people. I don't know. I can just imagine, like, say we need 7 to 2 at the time of like
Yes.
Brown, or that was, I believe it was
Brown
Union,
was-
or
Brown,
Yeah,
Brown
unanimous,
went from
but-
4-5 to 9-0.
Okay, but say like I feel like
But
something
at-
like that could
But
happen,
wait.
and then it's like.
But you have a year and then you re-vote and you keep going until
It's
you
also
get
the
that
other way,
7 to
Talia,
2.
like
I
what
feel
if
like that
Plessy
kind
was-
of
The ruling holds for a
delegitimate.
year?
Yeah.
That kind
Oh,
of, that seems,
Yeah.
that like almost, to
But
me,
then
kind of
also-
delegitimizes the court though,
Yeah.
to say that like,
It also
like they
covers
can
the
make a
country.
ruling, but the ruling isn't actually a permanent ruling, it's just like, yeah, whatever.
Like,
Well, they
Like,
can
it's-
make permanent
the problem-
rules. I just think that
Like,
if you want bipartisanship, sure, progress is slower, but I think that it is a safer way to make the arguments that subjective political views won't be the only reason that someone makes a decision.
the real problem is
5-4
when
are
we,
insane.
like, when Congress changed the requirement for justice from being 60 to 50 or whatever. Like that, like, and when it made it so you only really needed one party to appoint a justice. It used to be much more bipartisan.
Wait, what are you saying? When it changed it from 60 to
60
So-
votes in the Senate,
Yeah, it used to
50
be
Oh.
justice, yeah,
because
which,
Obama, so in,
Obama,
so the Senate under Harry Reid did that first for lower court justices, and then when Mitch McConnell and when President Trump came into power, Mitch McConnell took away the supermajority for Supreme Court justices also, and cabinet secretaries.
Can we?
So-
Which is
Really?
stupid that you can get rid of a
Yes.
supermajority with a normal majority.
Yeah, it's good.
Can we talk
Wait, so
about?
can the Democrats put that back in place?
Yes.
Yeah,
But they're also, yes, they could.
But it's too late.
But it's
well,
kind
once
of
it's
like,
got
Just to back Matt, sorry.
Well, if somebody dies,
No,
that
just
really
to back-
sucks,
Just to
so.
back up Matt's point, the definition of politics.
You're gonna kill
Just talk over people.
Okay.
Everybody else is doing it.
The definition of politics is activities associated with the governance of a country or other area, especially the debate of or conflict among individuals or parties about having or hoping to achieve power. So if politics, like if a part of politics is like the hope to achieve power, then the Supreme Court, I'd say, isn't political, what Matt was saying. And I think
What
a
hope
lot
to
of
I think we
power.
understand, like,
I'm not saying it's not
commonplace,
political.
what
I'm
we're.
just saying that it's not as political as other entities, and that we've kind of made an effort in our country, and the way that it's outlined in, like, look, if like in Federalist 78, Alexander Hamilton talks a lot about how
Who's that guy?
how
you should listen to music.
the role of the court, that the way that justices are, even he outlines why it's important that justices aren't elected over and over again and get to be on the court for a long time. And I think that kind of makes the point that I was making. But also, can we talk a little about why judicial philosophies are important, and if so, whether or not it matters if justices have a consistent judicial philosophy throughout their careers?
Sure.
But it matters for legitimacy.
Oh, I just wanted to
I
add
think
one
they're the
thing
same.
beforehand. I think that we like, over all of this, is just like the idea that we're like, the US is a democracy, but we're not a democracy, we're a republic. And that's kind of just like, we've never been a democracy. And even though we pretend to be, I think the fact that we pretend to be or that we think we are is part of like the whole overall issue.
Are you suggesting a direct democracy?
What?
Like everybody votes on everything?
Well, this country is not a direct democracy. It's
I know.
Yeah, but are you saying that the definition of democracy is direct democracy, or are you saying that indirect democracy
You mean
is essentially a
only in large
republic
elections?
It's not
Sure.
essentially, it is, we are a democratic republic.
of the Congo?
Anyway, Matt, we can continue, Matt.
No, I just want to get to that question.
I think it's more important that justices' philosophies change over time.
Yeah. So one thing that that Jonathan Gould brought up, and Talia was just. So what do you want to say? What you're saying?
I don't think there's a difference between evolutionist and originalist.
And so one thing that Jonathan Gould brought up after class is that that's kind of what he was saying. He was just saying that evolutionists want to see the country kind of move forward in a progressive way, and so they kind of look forward and they want the law to evolve. And originalists are mostly conservatives; they want to look backwards at what the laws used to be. And I know that probably originalists wouldn't agree with that. Maybe a lot of evolutionists wouldn't either. But that kind of shows that would, if that's true, that would kind of show that it's all really people just trying to advance political aims. But any response
I
to
think you
that?
can see it in a different way, like that, like people's politics and judicial philosophy are both, they're like just reflections of how they think about the world. So like the fact that a liberal, evolutionist justice is probably going to be liberal, because that's like the way a liberal thinks about the Constitution is going to be different than the way somebody who's more conservative thinks about the Constitution. And like that, yes, their politics are affecting their decisions, but that's because that's because their judicial philosophy is a piece of their politics and a piece of how they view the Constitution.
How much of it do you think is using the judicial philosophy to further political aim, as opposed to them just kind of being intrinsically tied together?
I think obviously sometimes there are times justices will just, you say like, I like this thing, but so I'm gonna vote for it even though it may not fit with my philosophy or whatever. But I think justices don't sometimes do often will say like, here's what I believe. Like, it is not just politics. Here's what I believe about the Constitution. It's like what's that line from it's in Scalia quotes? It's like from like the flag burning cases, which were like flag burning was like the conservatives hated it and wanted it banned, and since it was like, if I was king, they'd be in jail or something. You know, like, but he ended up being the deciding vote that said like, it is your constitutional right to burn the flag. And like, that was his personal politics. And like, I think this is morally wrong and like
Roberts
offensive
just
to
did that too,
the
yeah.
The
Constitution.
problem with that for me is that like that's the minority of times. The majority of times, their judicial philosophies are their politics.
If you're saying that the court is too political, I just want to pose a question. If we're saying that justices with consistent judicial philosophies are too political, what is the solution?
I have no idea.
Is there a solution?
I mean,
Is this the best possible way to
who
do it?
says we should follow the Constitution? We have free will.
The majority?
Why don't we just rebel?
The entire basis of our
Constitution
country.
says.
Like, if the
The
police
strength of
don't,
the
if
United
the
We're like, we can do the Constitution whatever we want, so why does it matter?
Like, if the police don't
The
enforce
thing
the
is-
laws and we don't wanna follow them, like, the government can't do anything about it, and now
The
everyone's
greater we.
Well, while you're advocating the entire collapse of the system, what was I gonna say? Oh, I think that like there's something just about the act of like giving your thought process a label that like once the egg hatches the chicken, then the chicken further informs the egg, which is why it's not like it's not like a perfect flow
Did
chart
you just solve
relationship. It's that
what comes
no.
first?
Wait, what?
I think that
I'm saying that it's not that relationship, and I did a really poor job. I should have picked something else. But it's not a flowchart relationship. Of like, okay, you don't have your thought process, and then like. And then give it a name and just like it's the name for the way you think and that's it and like it doesn't change the way I'm saying giving it a label changes the way you think because if Justice Scalia were to like think like an originalist but not there's no title for it it's just like the way he thinks then he might be before he has a
More
label and
fluid.
before he identifies as an originalist he's likely to be more fluid or just like naturally like what do I think about this and rule based on his actual thinking rather than the way he's chosen to align himself. So labeling reinforces your thought process and your ideas and legitimizes it, but it also solidifies it in this way that makes it more rigid.
I would
Maybe it'd be
actually
better
disagree.
if there were no labels.
I would actually disagree. I think
Yeah.
that, well, I see where you're coming from. I actually think that that Justice Scalia will have his ideas, whatever they may be, and that it's the label that's the issue because the label does not necessarily mean what every single person is thinking. So it's not that they're going to fit themselves into their label, it's that they just apply a label that doesn't fit. But they keep being who they are.
But I'm saying that's not true because if somebody's, let's say my thought process is 90% living constitutionalist or whatever.
And then 10%.
If
then use your 10% though.
But I'm saying it's
everybody's a
unlikely,
living
like
constitutionalist.
Because then
there
you'll
are
be
moderate Democrats who get
accused of-
pulled to
yeah.
left, and that perhaps that's because of politics, but perhaps that's also because like if you're most closely affiliated to one party, you're more likely to gravitate towards the party line after labeling yourself. So yes, I'm not saying they're going to become 100% living constitutionalists, but I'm saying like if I meet it halfway or if I start using that label, I'm likely to gravitate towards the 100% rather than farther away.
I feel like maybe
No, you go.
No, you were
like maybe that is true, but I don't think it really matters at this point because like
Yeah, but
these labels are a thing that like
Yeah.
we can't get rid of the term like originalist. Like Antonin
Yeah.
Scalia, he was an originalist. There's no way we're going to change that.
Yeah, no,
I don't
it's
think there's.
I agree. It's
Yeah, I don't think
But
that-
a lot, I think it's an
Yeah.
interesting thing
Yeah,
to
but I
consider.
don't
Was
know
it
because
bad?
What is
Scalia
Scalia
said that he would have, in Roe v. Wade, he would have voted for Roe. He was saying like in the Constitution, that America can't put restrictions on abortion, and like I think that he obviously like is against abortion and would want anti-abortion laws. So he said that Constitution is just not constitutional. So I think that kind of disproves what Jonathan Gold was saying because Scalia said that like he would vote a certain way even though he actually disagrees with that because that's what the Constitution is.
I'm not saying they become 100% the thing. I'm saying they gravitate towards it.
Don't we still think that at heart they care most about upholding the Constitution?
Like,
I hope so.
I think this little argument is ultimately
What
like
that means.
irrelevant because I think they're both operating in a lens of like living constitutionalist, whatever. I think just Scalia isn't willing to admit that because he wants to like whatever.
seem better than the other.
Yeah, or to like, it's a better way for him to promote his political agenda. I really,
I think
But
it's
just
an
because
argument
they're
of
at the
options.
extremes of the spectrum doesn't mean they're the same.
no, I'm not, I'm simply saying that like, the way they,
Okay.
sorry, you go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that Scalia's argument, as what you're saying, is that I'm objective because I go to the original, you're subjective because you look at different time periods.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is
and
Even though subjective even in the original.
yeah,
Right,
and I
yeah,
think
that's what you're-
exactly,
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And one
Yeah, the
thing
fact
I
that there's no right
that's-
answer means it's gonna be subjective.
I don't think that's a problem with like the actual philosophies though. I think that's a problem with just how we like frame them and how we talk about them. Like I don't think
I
that
agree,
like,
yeah.
like I don't think saying like I think that there's definitely a problem with saying like we can't say what's original is what's right, or like it's more objective. I don't think that's a problem like with the idea of like, oh well, we like someone wrote this law, so we should ask like what's important is to ask them. Like that's not it. Like I think like sorry.
I think
Yeah, you get me.
No, that makes sense.
I think a lot of the time we criticize justices for kind of for turning away from their judicial philosophies because we
Guys,
see
you want to start to
judicial-
wrap up?
Alright, because we see judicial philosophies as the way that, as the kind of mode of keeping justices looking at the facts and then just applying the judicial philosophy as to not become biased towards one set of facts, and so we kind of keep them honest. But I think, as Ben was saying before, I think it's also important to allow justices to maybe transition during their careers or maybe adjust their judicial philosophies on certain cases, because I think that by holding justices to an originalist or evolutionist kind of stance, we are making them more political than they need to be.
Yeah, I think there's
We're out of time now.
Yeah, exactly. And so why do we need people to, I mean, I haven't heard anything yet that really makes the case for making judicial philosophies important and making it important that they hold true to them throughout their careers.
Well, I don't think it's about. I don't think it's about like. First of all, I think there's a difference between like, oh, over my time in the court, my opinions on this has changed, is different than like one time like. Oh, I have shown that I have like this idea of how we should read the Constitution, but for this one case, I'm going to go the entirely.
No, but let me give you an example.
Also, I think.
No, he has to do what he said.
Okay, sorry.
I think that the concern, sorry if I think the concern is that if someone changes their mind, then that means that